Welcome to Empowering the Next Generation podcast. I am Helen Veru. This podcast is dedicated to help anyone connected to preteens and teens to give them tools, empower and inspire teachers, high school senior leaders, and parents to build the future leaders of tomorrow. We discuss about controversial and relevant topics related to the world of education, the main problems you are facing, and solutions to help you navigate your journey. We want to make a positive change in education by bringing on experts that will give you a different perspective on how you can solve the hardship you are facing today. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Empowering the Next Generation podcast with Coach Helen. I am so glad that you're listening to us today. And I have an amazing guest speaker today. His name is Patrick Cozier. I've met him on LinkedIn, and he is really passionate about really bringing a change in education. So Patrick is a successful and experienced secondary school leader. He has been a head teacher of a large comprehensive school, around like 1,600 students for the last 17 years. He was also the chair of the Haringey Secondary Heads Forum for 9 years. And in the last 3 to 5 years, he has sat on the Racial Equity Committee as part of the Haringey Education Partnership and led the last 3 successful conferences. In addition to being the co-vice chair of trustees of Show Racism the Red Card, he is also a trustee of Horizons, which is the charitable arm of the Haringey Education Partnership. As an educationalist, he is committed to doing everything that he can to support our young people to thrive and become the best adults they can be. As a member of the Black community, he is passionate about seeking equality, justice, and fair outcomes for people of color. He's currently developing his theory on calm leadership. Hello, Patrick.
Hello. Lovely to be on here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. I love how you talked about developing your theory on calm leadership. You've been a head teacher for 17 years, and I just want you to share with the audience what led you to become a head teacher?
Okay, so I think for me, the beginning was pretty much near the beginning when I started teaching. So I knew that I wanted to be a teacher from when I was in secondary school doing my A-level. So when I was about 17, I realized I wanted to become a teacher. When I started teaching, I remember in the very first job that I had, I attended the head teacher's speech on one of the open evenings for the prospective parents, the year 6 going into year 7. And I just watched her do this speech, and I thought, this is what I want to do. I want to be able to be one day to be speaking about my school, and having the opportunity to have my ideas come to fruition, leading a school community. So that was my driving force, really.
I love that. So, and I believe as well that educators are all leaders. I'm very passionate into the concept of leadership. I love servant leadership specifically, which is where leaders really serve, their community and make a difference in their community. Because we have a lot of leaders who are performers, who are in the role just for the position. But I can see, Patrick, that you're a different leader. You're a leader who really wants to make a difference. You're a leader who wants to inspire to make a change where you are and wherever you are. Even I think when you were a teacher, you have done that difference in your classroom, and you improved yourself as a leader. You became, I think, a middle school leader, and then after you a mid-year leader. I think that's the name, a mid-year leader.
Yeah.
And then you became and head of year, and now you are a head teacher. So you've seen it along the way. You have evolved yourself as a head teacher. And I know that I didn't really ask you some questions, but really we go on the flow. Okay, I have some questions in mind, and I think that it can be really beneficial for the audience. So as you grew as a leader, what have you seen that was different? What have you done, that is different from what you've seen around you in the school where you are right now? What have you done different?
I think a lot of it depends on the context of the schools in which you work. And what you try to do is you try to identify the things that you feel within a particular context are not where they ought to be, and then you try to change those. And so one of the things that when I started my job here, I felt that there were many good things about the school. But I always felt that there was maybe a lack of rigor in some areas that I thought was necessary for some of our cohort, maybe the ones who come from a less advantaged background, who needed a bit more structure and a bit more support. And so when I first joined the school, that was one of the things that I wanted to do immediately, was to implement some of those things to really try and address some of the needs of some of those students. So I think there are a variety of things that you do over time that I think are very relevant to the context that you're working in. Just stepping back 1 second to the first thing that you asked me, what I would say to you as well is one of the most amazing things about leadership is you do get the opportunity to implement ideas that you have. But one of the most amazing things is when you see those ideas being taken forward by members of staff. And actually, what's really exciting is that people take it in directions that you never imagined yourself. And that's the thing, that for me, that's kind of the magic, is that it's like this idea that I had, and actually it's become something that's even greater and different and more diverse and more vibrant than what I thought in the first place, because staff have taken it and they've run with it and they've brought their own twist to it. And I think that's where it gets really amazing.
Yeah, I love what you say, because as a John Maxwell certified coach, I don't know if you know about John Maxwell.
Yes.
I love the way he talks about leadership, and you are empowering your leaders, and you are making them becoming leaders in their own sphere of influence, who will eventually impact, other leaders. And I love that it's called the law of empowerment. And you have done so as a leader. You have gotten your idea, give it to implemented it in other people's life, who as well are implementing it in other people's lives. Yes. So I love that you're a leader. Definitely, you are a very impactful leader. So how do you inspire your school community? Just share with us like 3-4 nuggets that you've said, you know what, I implemented this and this to really inspire my school community to be better.
I think well, the first thing I would say is I hope I do inspire my school community. I don't think anybody ever takes that for granted, and you like to think that you have an impact as a leader. I think there are a few things that really make a difference. I think the first thing I would say is that I think you have to lead by example. You have to transmit the values that you want the rest of the school community to live by, and you have to be someone who can demonstrate those as well as talk about them. And so the first thing for me is that I've always tried to be the leader that I've always wanted to be led by, if that makes any sense. That, coming through the system, you have an idea about different people that lead you and what they're like, and strengths and weaknesses, and I want to be that person who I would have wanted to have been led by. I'm an absolutely firm believer that leadership is fundamentally about people.
Yes.
I think systems and processes are important, but they are there to support your leadership and not to replace it. And so for me, it's about really engaging with people as much as I can. And I try to be as consistent about that as I can. It's not always easy, but I try to make sure that I listen as keenly as I can. I think those one-to-one conversations are really important, because you get a chance to learn more about the people that you're leading and what their strengths and weaknesses are, and the things that they need from you as a leader, how your decisions impact on people, because I think sometimes it's easy to not see that. And I also think that those one-to-one conversations give other staff the opportunity to actually hear you share your vision on a one-to-one basis, because the things that you're saying are consistent with the things that you're trying to implement across the school as well. So I think those things are really important, and communication is critical. verbal, written, individually, whole school, having that clarity in the way that you articulate the things that you want and the things that you believe in and how you work are really important. And I think, I think those are the things that are critical for me, being clear and being transparent. And what I would say is that, for me, the thing that I communicate to my staff that I hope inspires them is that I genuinely believe that leadership is about people. It's about giving service.
Yes.
I often say to my staff, that I'm proud to serve you, because I think that's what
Oh,
leadership is,
wow.
that you are there to try to make life easier and more manageable for the staff and the community that you lead. And I think that's something that is really important to us in our leadership. I'll just say one thing very quickly, because I know that I don't want to take up
Of
time.
course, of course. No, go
But
ahead.
but one of the things that we do is Christmas time, we serve the staff a Christmas lunch. So the canteen prepare the lunch, which is amazing, and all props to them. They do an amazing job. And myself and the other senior leaders, my deputies and my assistant heads, we run the service. We go out, we serve the staff, and it's a bit, I mean, some people find it, a bit funny and whatever. But I think for me, it's symbolic of this nature that we are there to serve staff. And it's a symbolic way in which we can embody that as a value that we have. So I would like to think that those things are things that inspire my school community, hopefully.
Wow. I have to say to you that I've always, what I'm doing within the podcast, I've always wanted to have people like you who have the same heart as I have, because I'm really into heart-centered leadership, and I've been an educator for a long time, and I have not seen that kind of leadership. What you are actually talking about, I have not seen it, because I don't know if it's like, obviously I believe it's like all about the leader. I believe it's all about the mindset of the person who is in position. And when you talk about how you want to inspire your school community, how you want to make a difference in your school community, and you start serving them first, it resonates with me, because I've always wanted to work in a school like that. I know a lot of people, and I can see you very relational. I've always wanted to have a head teacher as an educator who is relational, and very few like head teachers, they have so many things to do. And I want to ask you, how do you balance that life when you have so many like deadlines to deadlines, and as well, how do you are authentic and human, and you as well you do that one-to-one with your team? How do you balance this? Because this is the thing that I think most school, not even if it's all schools, should be doing, balancing that stressful part as a head teacher, which is deadlines, report, and all of that, and as well bringing that human side where you, as you've been saying, you serve, you communicate, you share your vision, you are authentic, you want to inspire your team. So how do you balance that as a head teacher?
I mean, that's an amazing question, because I think it's a really difficult one to claim success in. I'm not sure that I do balance it as well as I would like to, and I'm not sure how many people do. It's a challenge. I think that you go through periods of time where you don't have that balance, but it's about trying to make sure that you do focus on what's important, and so you take the opportunities where you can get it. So for me, it's about, if you are having those opportunities to sit down and have a conversation with a member of staff, and it could be about anything. It could be a line management thing, or it could be that someone's come, made an appointment to come and see you about a particular issue that they've got, or the conversation you might have in the staff room with someone, or in the corridor, or in the playground, or whatever. I try to be as present as I can be, and the thing that I said earlier about listening, I think, is really important. It's about hearing people and really connecting with what you hear. I think that's really important. So I think, it's not, the time thing is really difficult, because I think, like most leaders, there are not enough hours in the day. And so you never have a time where you feel there is enough time to do all the things that you need to do. But it's about what focus and attention you give those things at the time that you're doing them. So if you're having a conversation with a member of staff, I think the worst thing that you can do is be thinking about the 50 things that you have to do during the day, which means that you're not really present, because you're kind of like, okay, is that, and it's really obvious and evident that you're just trying to move them on as quickly as you can, because you want to get onto these other things that you maybe in your head at the time you perceive as being more important. I think that is something which some people might do, and it's not helpful. And I think that by being present, even if you are worried about all the stuff you've got to do, even if you're feeling that stress of like, oh my God, how am I going to get these things done? You can't make the people that you're engaging with feel that. They have to feel like they're the most important person in the room at the time when you're having that conversation. So I try really hard to do that. I wouldn't say I was successful all the time, but I'd like to think I'm successful more often than I'm not, I hope.
Yeah, I love it.
But yeah, deadlines and everything else. I mean, obviously you need to be as organized as you can be. I've increasingly got a bit better with my organization as the years has gone on. Having an amazing PA helps as a head teacher. But yeah, you've got to try and find balance where you can and manage your diary and all that kind of stuff as well.
Yes, I love it. I love it. One more question that is not on the question that I ask you and I have in mind.
That's
I
fine.
love it. Is how, I've seen as well head teachers not wanting to be too, I wouldn't say casual with their staff, but they want to create that kind of boundaries where it's like, I'm the head teacher, but there is so much we can talk about. And I think when you are a heart-centered teacher, of course, you're not going to talk about your personal life or to your staff, but I think this is where I think it's hard for people to connect a bit deeper, because if people were connecting deeper, I think it would be better in all the schools. People will feel more heard, more involved, more part of the community. So as a head teacher, how do you like create boundaries, but as well learn to connect with your staff without making them feel that it's really head teacher to staff?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting question. And I think, yeah, it very much comes down to personal style, I think. I remember when I first became a head and people talked about leadership being lonely. And my interpretation of that, which I later now believe is wrong, but my interpretation at the time was that loneliness was about the fact that you couldn't connect and communicate with staff. You couldn't have friendly conversations, that you had to remain kind of distant and aloof and all that kind of stuff. And actually, I think that's nonsense. I just don't think it's true. I think that the loneliness of leadership actually isn't about that. It's about decision making. That's the bit that's lonely. It's knowing that you are ultimately accountable and you can have as many conversations as you want about a difficult thing that you need to resolve. But ultimately, when everybody else leaves the room and everyone goes home and they go to do their individual things, whether it's work or family or whatever, that decision still lies with you and that accountability lies with you. And that is the lonely bit. The social stuff is just what you want it to be. And so for me, I wouldn't say that I've got any of my staff that I have within school who are friends, in the sense that we don't go to each other's houses and see each other's kids and all that kind of stuff. But, I've got, one of my assistant heads who, pre-COVID, we haven't done it that much actually since COVID, but pre-COVID, we'd go and play some snooker or whatever. And so socializing is okay. I don't think there's a problem with that. I just think you have to maintain your boundaries in terms of what you talk about and what you don't talk about, it's fine to talk about your personal life and your family or whatever. You can do those things, but what you don't do is gossip about other members of staff and get involved in that sort of stuff. So you have to remain distant from
Professional.
Yeah, of course, from anything that might compromise the trust and integrity for everybody within your staff body. You have to protect that as much as you can. But I don't think there's anything to stop you from being connected and friendly and all of those sorts of things.
I love it. I love it. So now let's dive into the subject of what is calm leadership. that's your thing. So let's go, Patrick. Just share with the audience, what is calm leadership for you?
Okay, so I mean, I'll start by saying what it isn't. It isn't the notion that you kind of can lead in a sort of laid back fashion where, you know, everything is cool and easy and there's no trouble. It's not about that. It's about maintaining the ability to think and act as if you were calm. Because the reality is that there are times in leadership where you're absolutely not calm because things challenge you in ways that are incredibly demanding. And what you have to be able to do is to have strategies to manage that and act and think as if you were calm, particularly when you're not feeling calm. I think that's really the key thing. And where it started for me was that, you know, I've been doing this role for a long time, and one of the things that I used to do in my role as chair of the Secondary Forum in Haringey is you'd often have conversations with some of the newer colleagues to headship, and one of the things that those colleagues who were new to the job were asking me, finding things difficult as you do in your early years, was how are you still able to do this job after all these years, and you've still got the energy, you're still enthusiastic, you're still enjoying it. What is it that you're doing that enables you to do that? And the truth was I didn't know the answer. I had no idea. And so it made me think and reflect. You know, I don't know actually what it is. What is it that when I'm asked that question that I can genuinely say, well, I tell you what it is, it's this and that. And that's where it started, because as I reflected on what are the things that I think that I've managed to do to stay enthusiastic and invested and energetic about leadership, actually it's the things that make up the calm leadership stuff. And actually, if I was to put it into a very, very neat nutshell, I would say it's about the ability to make sense of the role in your head so that you are able to maintain a sense of perspective when things get difficult, and that enables you to process things and react in a calm way to all situations whenever you have to deal with them. I've created a definition, which I'll tell you what the actual definition is. So what I've said is that, you know, calm leaders have a well-developed sense of perspective, which, as I said, I think is really important. They accept that first and foremost, leadership is primarily about people, not systems and processes. They can remain focused, productive, and optimistic when under extreme pressure, which is inevitable in leadership. They prioritize long-term values, principles, and purpose over short-term productivity and outcomes. And as a leader of people, they convey a calm, caring, and reassuring authority. So that's kind of my definition of what it is.
I love it. I love it. That's really deep. And I would say as well, based on your interpretation of calm leadership and how you've over the years you remain calm and I wouldn't say stress-free, but you remain in the same position for 17 years. I believe that it's about alignments, Patrick. You have been called for that. I think that most people, they are in a job that is they are not called for. They do things for the wrong motives. And I think you are being a head teacher for the right motive, which is for the people. But some people, they are in headship because of the position, because of the money, because of the influence. But this is where it all comes with the heart-centered leader. So I guess I would say this is the main thing as well, is that you are aligned. You are in the right place at the right time. The same way you have like head educators or who don't like their jobs anymore, who are not passionate about it, because they have to move on. There is a place of transitioning. Like now you're starting to implement your concept of calm leadership that you didn't have 17 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's where you are growing and building yourself, into that person that you are called to be, and leave a legacy, leave something behind based on all those years that you've been, a head teacher. So how how can someone be a leader that lasts?
Yeah, that's the key question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's where
How?
it all starts from. So the first thing, and I've alluded to this, I think already, is that you have to be able to manage your emotions. It's really important, and master your capacity to be able to control your thoughts, because only through doing those things are you able to minimize the impact of the pressure and the challenges that come along the way. There are a number of things that when I talk about this stuff to people, give various talks and things, that I talk people through, and there are kind of 8 main things that I cover. One is about reducing imposter syndrome. So I think that's inevitable in leadership. We all, at various times, think that we have roles that we don't actually deserve to have. And I think that's just normal. And you have to recognize that and find ways to deal with that. I think sometimes that insecurity is one of the things I think that can make people respond in ways that maybe are not great leadership. So I think that's important. You have to be able to deal with the paranoia, because I think there is a concern in leadership that everybody's out to get you. You have to develop a sense of perspective. I've mentioned before. You have to embrace the fact that leadership is difficult, and I say to my leadership team, that it's difficult because it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be easy. Leadership is difficult. And once we accept that, then we don't waste any energy lamenting the fact that tough things are arriving and that you're having to deal with. I think that's really important. You have to be optimistic. You have to lead with human empathy and kindness. I think that's really important. And ultimately, you have to try to be yourself as much as you can. And all of this is a process. I don't think you can just do it. It's something that you do over time and that you learn over time. It's a process you have to go through.
I love it. My favorite one is empathy.
Yeah.
I think that this is what is lacking in people, most in general, is compassion. And I think as well, as a leader, the only way you can get to that place of compassion is only if you are healed in your heart. If you are like in where you are in your journey, you can feel and understand what people feel, and you can only connect with your emotion if you're healed. It's not going to work if you don't have that healing in your heart, because you're always going to speak from a place of trauma, but never from a place of love.
Yeah.
And I think it goes even deeper than that. But I love how you talked about the 8 steps. So to conclude, Patrick, no, I want to actually ask you one more question. Let's do like 1 minute maximum. How can someone lead in the way that best suits them?
I think they've got to first of all decide what that is. That's the first thing is you've got to decide what type of leader you want to be, and that's the first thing, and that's not easy. I think that comes over time. You have to ask yourself those questions. What are my values? I did an exercise in 2011 where I asked myself these things as part of I was being coached at the time, and I was being asked the question, what are my core personal values? So I came up with, and I've got them written down in front of me because I couldn't remember them, humanistic, preserving integrity, win-win, empowering others, fairness and justice, consistency. Values are obvious and evident. Honesty, loyalty, optimism, seeing the best in people, pragmatic where appropriate. Those are the things that I decided were really important to me. And once you are clear about what those things are, then the next step is to have the courage lead in that way, because there are things that will happen where people will make it difficult for you to retain those values and be consistent with those values. But you have to know what they are and then challenge yourself whenever you're doing anything, whenever you're making a decision, is to say, is this aligned with those things or not? And if it isn't, to make yourself think differently so that you can be consistent.
I love it. I love it. So what is your final word for educators, for parents, and for high school senior leaders?
I would say to focus on what is really important. And that for me is people. You know, if you try the best that you can be to be the best leader that you can be, and I specifically say the best leadership version of yourself, because you can't be the best anybody else. You've got to be the best version of you. If you consistently try to be that, and you are focused on supporting other people to be the best versions of themselves, then I think that you will go a long way to making a real difference.
I love it. Thank you, Patrick, for being in the podcast. You have really left something amazing that I think the audience is going to really ponder about, if they're going to really think about the calm leadership and how they can implement it in their own life. Thank you, Patrick.
No problem. It's been a real pleasure. As I said, I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you for listening to this episode, and make sure you connect with us on Instagram at The Case for Success. Check also my Linktree and become an affiliate of the Success Guide for Teens Academy, a program that will empower your school community as a parent, teacher, and high school senior leader. Do not hesitate to reach out, comment, and share. Until then, see you in the next episodes.